What is up everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Fire if you're new here. Welcome to the family, you're in the right place. Today we're diving deep into the world of football, this sport absolutely electric. Whether you love it or you live it, this one's for you. So make sure you stick around till the end, because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Let's get into it. If I told you that the team likely to win the 2026 World Cup is not France, not Argentina, not Brazil, who would your pick be? Because something strange happens when you look at the current contenders. Almost everyone is talking about the same names, the same stars, the same stories. But when I started reviewing the stats of the major national teams and comparing them to what previous World Cup champions look like before their crowning moment, a name appeared that I never expected to see with this kind of force. At first, I wasn't convinced. Honestly, I thought it was just one of those theories that looks great on paper and then collapses at the first real test. But the more I gathered the data, the harder it became to ignore this team. And the strangest part, most fans don't even put them in first place. Let's see why. There's a mistake football fans make before every World Cup. They focus on the biggest stars and forget about the best teams. And the difference between the two is bigger than it seems. Take any recent World Cup champion. You won't find a team that won simply because it had the most famous player, but because it had a complete system. And that brings us to the first sign: consistent evolution. Champion teams don't appear out of nowhere. They build themselves quietly over years. One step, then another, then a third. And that's exactly what the team we're talking about today has done. They've participated in consecutive World Cup editions and maintained their presence among the world's top teams for a long time. But strangely, many fans still see them through the old lens, the image of a team that depends on one single star. And that's when I started telling myself, wait, are we still judging this team the way it was 10 years ago? Because the current team is completely different. And if I asked you right now to pick a surprise team for the 2026 World Cup, write the name in your mind. Then compare your pick to what we are about to reveal. The second sign is stability. It might not sound exciting, but it's what separates good teams from champion teams. Many national teams enter the World Cup still searching for their identity. Constant changes, new tactics, experiments that haven't concluded yet. But the truly dangerous teams arrive at the tournament knowing themselves well. They know how to defend and how to attack and how to respond when they fall behind on the scoreboard. And when you look at this team, you find a project that has lasted for years, not months. And that kind of stability gives players something that can't be measured in numbers: confidence. The confidence that everyone knows their role in the match begins. But up to this point, you could argue that everything I've said applies to more than one team, and that's a fair objection. So let's get to the part that made me rethink everything: the current generation. Years ago, the conversation started with one name and ended with that same name: Cristiano Ronaldo. But today, the situation is different. You have Bruno Fernandes and Bernardo Silva and Vitinha and Joe Neves and Ruben Dias and Nuno Mendes and Diogo Costa. And wait, that's before we even mention the rest of the names. And when I looked at this list for the first time, I thought I was overrating it. But the more I compared it to other national teams, the more balanced it looked. It may not have the biggest star in every position, but it rarely has an obvious weak point. And that's where great stories begin. Because short tournaments aren't always won by the team with the brightest stars, but by the team with the fewest gaps. And now we arrive at the real question: if Portugal has all these elements, why doesn't everyone place them at the top of the rankings? Yes, now we can say the name. The team is Portugal, and I think many of you had already guessed that. But the exciting part isn't the name of the team, it's what happens when you put them under pressure. Because the real test of any contender is the big matches. Any team can look brilliant against weaker opponents, but what happens when they stand against France or Argentina or Brazil? That's where character shows. And Portugal over recent years has become accustomed to these kinds of confrontations, accustomed to playing under pressure and accustomed to reaching the advanced stages. And this is something that gets greatly underestimated, because some teams have the talent but not the mental experience required to win 7 massive consecutive matches. And now we reach the most important point, the point that recurs with almost every major champion: playing identity. Think about Spain, then Germany, then Argentina. You could watch just 5 minutes and know know who you were watching. That's what champions do. Other teams spend the entire tournament trying to discover themselves. And when you look at Portugal today, you see a team that doesn't rely on one player. This is perhaps the biggest thing that has changed. Years ago, the question was, how will Ronaldo perform? But today, the question has become, how do you stop this entire group? One player creates, another scores, a third breaks the press, a fourth leads the defense, and the team doesn't stop if one name is absent. And that's exactly what makes some analysts see Portugal as a genuine contender, not because of Ronaldo's name, but because the team has become bigger than any single player. And here the stunning paradox appears. Portugal has never won the World Cup, despite having one of the greatest players in the history of the game. But many believe the current edition may be the most balanced squad in the entire history of the national team. Not necessarily the most famous, and that's something that happens a lot in football. The best team isn't always the loudest team, and that's why I return to the first question. What if everyone is looking at France, Argentina, and Brazil, while another contender moves quietly in the background? Because history says the next World Cup won't be decided by names alone, and there will be at least one team that surprises everyone. And the question I still can't ignore is Portugal that story? Or is there another team approaching even more quietly than we can imagine? And now we reach the most important point, the point that recurs with almost every major champion: playing identity. Think about Spain, then Germany, then Argentina. You could watch just 5 minutes and know exactly who you were watching. That's what champions do. Other teams spend the entire tournament trying to discover themselves. And when you look at Portugal today, you see a team that doesn't rely on one single player. And this is perhaps the biggest thing that has changed. Years ago, the question was, how will Ronaldo perform? But today, the question has become, how do you stop this entire group? One player creates, another scores, a third breaks the press, a fourth leads the defense, and the team doesn't stop if one name is absent. And that's exactly what makes some analysts see Portugal as a genuine contender, not because of Ronaldo's name, but because the team has become bigger than any single player. Honestly, this is the point that made me rethink the whole subject, because we've seen many teams with bigger stars, but when the knockout matches begin, the value of a complete, well-rounded team reveals itself. And here the stunning paradox appears. Portugal has never won the World Cup, despite having one of the greatest players in the history of the game. And if you had told a fan 10 years ago that the edition closest to winning the title might not be the one built around Ronaldo at his peak, they probably wouldn't have believed you. But many analysts today believe the current squad is the most balanced in the history of the national team, not necessarily the most famous. And that's something that happens a lot in football. The best team isn't always the loudest team. And that's why I return to the first question. What if everyone is looking at France? And what if all the spotlight is on Argentina? And what if Brazil keeps grabbing all the headlines, while another contender moves quietly in the background? A contender that has the experience, and has the quality, and has the depth, and has a clear identity. Does this mean Portugal will win the World Cup? No. Football gives no one guarantees. One injury can change everything. One red card can end an entire dream, and a single penalty kick can write history or erase it. But if you're looking for a team that has all the ingredients we typically see in champions, it's hard to ignore Portugal. In fact, ignoring them may have become harder than simply backing them. And there's one final truth worth thinking about. Many World Cup champions throughout history didn't enter the tournament as the fans' #1 pick. They entered while all the talk was about other teams. Then, just a few weeks later, they were the ones lifting the trophy. So, when the 2026 tournament begins, and you hear everyone talking about the usual names, watch the team that isn't getting the same noise, because the next champion's story may be being written right now, far from the spotlight. As for the other team we'll be discussing in the next video, it may have an even higher ceiling than Portugal itself, but it has just one weakness. Just one. And if it doesn't solve it before the World Cup, everything could collapse at the very moment the dream begins. And that's a wrap on today's video. Football is more than just a game. It's passion, it's heart, and it's the moments that keep us coming back for more. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just getting into this sport, I hope this video gave you something to enjoy. If you liked what you saw, smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Who's your favorite team? Let's get the debate going. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a video. See you in the next one. Stay passionate and keep loving the beautiful game.